My name is Melody Richardson, and at 25, I thought the worst part of living in my parents' basement was the musty smell and terrible cell reception. I was wrong. The worst part was sitting at their kitchen table last Tuesday night, watching my sister Hannah smirk as our parents delivered an ultimatum that would destroy my life. Mom leaned forward with that fake concerned expression she perfected years ago, while Dad drummed his fingers impatiently on the table. Hannah had just announced her pregnancy with twins, and somehow this joyous family news had turned into my personal nightmare. "Melody, sweetie," Mom began, her voice dripping with manipulative honey, "we need you to step up for family. Hannah's going to need full-time help with the babies, and since you're already here." Dad interrupted with his usual bluntness, "Your rent goes from $400 to $1,200 a month unless you become Hannah's nanny. No pay, obviously." I watched Hannah's smile grow wider as the blood drained from my face. That's when I knew this ambush had been carefully planned. Before we dive into this incredible story of family manipulation and the revenge they never saw coming, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking family drama stories. You absolutely won't believe what happened next when I discovered the real reason behind this twisted arrangement. So make sure you stay until the end because this tale of sisterly betrayal will leave you speechless. Growing up in the Richardson household meant understanding one fundamental truth: Hannah was the golden child, and I was the family disappointment who existed solely to make her shine brighter. From the moment she was born 3 years after me, our parents made it crystal clear that Hannah possessed some magical quality I would never have. When we were kids, I would spend hours working on school projects only to watch Hannah copy my ideas and receive all the praise from Mom and Dad. I remember when I was 12, I won the regional science fair with a project about renewable energy that took me months to research and build. Hannah threw together a baking soda volcano the night before her school's fair and somehow earned a standing ovation from our parents for her creativity and natural intelligence. The pattern continued through high school where I maintained a 4.0 GPA while working part-time at a local coffee shop, yet Hannah's mediocre grades and constant party attendance were celebrated as being well-rounded and socially gifted. When I graduated valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to art school, Dad's response was to remind me that book smarts don't matter if you can't connect with people like Hannah does. Meanwhile, Hannah barely scraped through graduation and immediately moved back home, where she was welcomed like a returning princess rather than a 22-year-old failure to launch. I spent 4 years studying graphic design, building a portfolio, and networking frantically to establish my freelance career. After graduation, I moved back home temporarily to save money for my own apartment, agreeing to pay $400 monthly for the converted basement space. That temporary arrangement had stretched into 2 years because every time I saved enough to move out, some family emergency would arise requiring my financial contribution. Hannah, meanwhile, lived completely rent-free in her childhood bedroom, which our parents had renovated into a luxury suite complete with a private bathroom and walk-in closet. The manipulation tactics were subtle but constant. Hannah had perfected the art of playing victim whenever I questioned the unfair treatment, tears flowing on command as she accused me of being jealous and selfish. "Why can't you just be happy for me?" became her standard response to any criticism, followed by our parents rushing to comfort their precious daughter while glaring at me for causing unnecessary drama. She had learned that playing the innocent victim was far more effective than direct confrontation, allowing her to destroy my relationships and opportunities while maintaining her spotless reputation. When I landed my biggest client last year, a contract worth $15,000, Hannah somehow convinced our parents that my success was making her feel inadequate and depressed. The solution, according to Mom and Dad, was for me to tone down my achievements and avoid discussing my career around my sensitive sister. The financial dynamics were equally twisted. While I struggled to build my business and pay rent, Hannah received a monthly allowance of $600 for helping around the house, which apparently meant leaving dishes in the sink and occasionally vacuuming her own room. Our parents paid her car insurance, health insurance, phone bill, and credit card while I handled all my own expenses plus contributed to family dinners and utilities. When I suggested that this arrangement seemed unfair, Dad's response was that Hannah needed more support because she was still finding herself, while I was already successful and should be grateful for the opportunity to help family. The hypocrisy was staggering, but questioning it only resulted in lectures about family loyalty and accusations that I was trying to pit siblings against each other. The twins were due in 4 months, and I had naively hoped that maybe becoming a mother would force Hannah to develop some maturity and responsibility. Instead, she used the pregnancy as a weapon to tighten the noose around my neck while positioning herself as a martyred saint who deserved endless support and sympathy. 3 days after their kitchen table ultimatum, I reluctantly agreed to the arrangement, telling myself I just needed to buy time to figure out an escape plan. My savings account had barely $3,000, nowhere near enough for first and last month's rent plus security deposit in our expensive city, and my freelance income fluctuated too much to qualify for most apartment applications. Hannah's smile when I accepted their terms should have warned me that this was exactly what she had been counting on. The demand started immediately and escalated with breathtaking speed. Hannah presented me with a color-coded schedule that required my availability from 6 in the morning until midnight, 7 days a week. According to her detailed plan, I would handle all-night feedings, diaper changes, laundry, meal preparation, and childcare while she recovered from the traumatic experience of childbirth and bonded with her babies during peaceful daytime hours. When I pointed out that this arrangement meant I would essentially be raising her children while she slept and relaxed, Hannah burst into tears and accused me of being unsupportive during her most vulnerable time. Our parents immediately took her side, with Mom declaring that a new mother needs rest and Dad reminding me that family comes first, especially when babies are involved. The isolation tactics began subtly but became increasingly aggressive as Hannah realized how much power she wielded. First, she banned my friends from visiting the house, claiming that loud voices and unfamiliar people would stress the babies and potentially harm their development. When my best friend Sarah tried to stop by with coffee and moral support, Hannah met her at the door with red-rimmed eyes and a story about how the babies had been crying all night because of overstimulation from too many visitors. She painted me as selfish for putting my social life ahead of innocent infants' well-being, and Sarah actually apologized for not thinking about the baby's needs. Next came restrictions on my work calls and video meetings, with Hannah insisting that any business conversations needed to happen outside the house because the babies required absolute quiet for proper brain development. The professional sabotage was methodical and devastating. Hannah seemed to possess an uncanny ability to know exactly when I had important client calls scheduled, and those were precisely the moments when she would suddenly need emergency help with fabricated crises. During my most crucial presentation to a potential long-term client, Hannah burst into my basement office claiming one of the babies was choking, only to disappear upstairs while I frantically ended my call and rushed to help. The baby was sleeping peacefully in his crib, but Hannah was nowhere to be found, and my client had already hung up in confusion. When I confronted her about the false alarm, she insisted she had honestly thought she heard choking sounds and accused me of prioritizing money over family safety. Our parents supported her version completely, with Dad suggesting that maybe I needed to reconsider my priorities if work was more important than potential emergency situations. The written agreement I had requested never materialized despite repeated promises. Every time I brought up the need for clear boundaries and expectations in writing, our parents would exchange glances and insist that family doesn't need contracts and that trust is more important than legal documents. Hannah would nod tearfully and express hurt that I didn't believe in their word, making me feel guilty for wanting basic protections. This verbal arrangement meant that the terms could change at any moment according to Hannah's whims, and they did change constantly. What started as temporary help during recovery gradually expanded into permanent full-time childcare, with Hannah claiming that the babies had bonded with Aunt Melody and would be traumatized by any disruption to their routine. The financial entrapment became more apparent as weeks passed. Not only was I providing free labor worth thousands of dollars monthly, but our parents expected me to contribute financially to baby expenses while Hannah's allowance actually increased to $800 for mother-related costs. When I questioned why I was buying diapers and formula while Hannah received extra spending money, Mom explained that new mothers need treats and small luxuries to prevent postpartum depression, while my contributions were simply what family members do for each other. The mathematics were clear. I was paying rent, providing free childcare, buying baby supplies, and watching my career crumble while Hannah lived free and received payment for producing the children I was raising. By the 6th week of this arrangement, my physical and mental health had deteriorated to dangerous levels. I was averaging 3 hours of sleep per night due to Hannah's insistence that I handle all nighttime baby care while she recovered her strength in her soundproof bedroom. The chronic exhaustion was affecting my ability to think clearly, communicate professionally, and maintain the quality standards my clients expected. Dark circles under my eyes made me look like I had been in a fight, and my hands shook constantly from caffeine overconsumption and stress. When I approached our parents about modifying the schedule to allow for more rest, they suggested I was exaggerating the difficulty because mothers throughout history have managed just fine and maybe I needed to develop better time management skills. The career damage was accelerating beyond repair. 3 major clients had terminated their contracts after repeated missed deadlines and unprofessional interruptions during important calls. My reputation in the local design community was crumbling as word spread about my unreliability and strange behavior during client meetings. The contract that was supposed to fund my apartment move had been cancelled after I fell asleep during a presentation due to exhaustion, and the client posted a scathing review online warning other businesses about my unprofessional conduct and inability to meet basic commitments. Hannah's response to my career destruction was to suggest that maybe this was a sign from the universe that I should focus on family instead of chasing money and recognition. The psychological warfare intensified as Hannah discovered new ways to torment me while maintaining her innocent facade. She developed a talent for making the babies cry precisely when I tried to rest, using techniques like playing music loudly near their cribs or deliberately overstimulating them before leaving them in my care. When I would finally get the infants calm and settled, Hannah would burst in claiming she just wanted to check on them and immediately undo all my careful work with loud voices and sudden movements. The babies learned to associate me with stress and exhaustion while seeing Hannah as the peaceful, loving presence who appeared only during their happiest moments. This psychological manipulation extended to our parents, who witnessed only Hannah's loving interactions and my desperate, exhausted attempts to manage constantly crying children. The family gathering humiliation was expertly orchestrated to maximize my embarrassment while elevating Hannah's martyred status. Our extended family arrived for Sunday dinner expecting to meet the new babies and celebrate Hannah's motherhood, but instead they found me disheveled and barely coherent after another sleepless night, while Hannah glowed with the radiance of someone who had gotten 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep. She had prepared a speech thanking Saint Melody for her incredible sacrifices and natural gift with children, describing how I had insisted on taking full responsibility for the babies because of my deep love for family. The relatives praised my selflessness while I stood there too exhausted to correct the narrative, and Hannah basked in the admiration for being blessed with such a devoted sister. The betrayal by my cousin Janet cut deeper than anything our parents had done because I had trusted her to understand the situation objectively. Janet had always been my ally during family gatherings, the one person who seemed to see through Hannah's manipulative tactics and our parents' favoritism. When I called her desperately seeking emotional support and maybe a couch to sleep on for a few nights, I expected understanding and validation. Instead, Janet launched into a lecture about family obligations and suggested that maybe Hannah's version of events was more accurate than mine. Apparently, Hannah had already contacted Janet with a carefully crafted story about how I had volunteered eagerly to help with the babies but was now trying to back out because the work was harder than expected. Janet accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, pointing out that Hannah was doing me a favor by allowing me to live at home while building my career. The discovery of Hannah's lies to our extended family revealed the scope of her manipulation campaign. Through carefully orchestrated phone calls and social media posts, she had constructed an entirely fictional narrative where I was the eager volunteer nanny who had begged for the opportunity to care for my nephews. According to Hannah's version, our parents had initially resisted the arrangement because they didn't want to burden me, but I had insisted that helping with the babies would be therapeutic and fulfilling for me personally. She painted herself as the grateful but concerned sister who worried that I was taking on too much responsibility out of misguided generosity. This preemptive story made it nearly impossible for me to seek help from family members, because they all believed I had created the situation myself and was now complaining about my own choices. The escalation to police threats revealed how far our parents were willing to go to maintain Hannah's control over my life. When I attempted to establish basic boundaries by refusing to work past midnight, Dad informed me that since I was essentially an employee who was failing to meet job expectations, they could legally evict me for breach of our housing agreement. He had researched tenant laws and discovered that because our arrangement was classified as family housing rather than a formal rental, I had virtually no legal protections against immediate eviction. The threat was clear. Continue providing unlimited free labor or face homelessness with no legal recourse and insufficient savings to secure alternative housing. Hannah's satisfied expression during this conversation confirmed that this escalation was part of her master plan rather than a spontaneous parental decision. The accidental discovery that exposed Hannah's true intentions happened during what should have been my first break in weeks. Hannah had announced she was going out for a much-needed girls' lunch and would be gone for several hours, giving me a rare opportunity to sleep while the babies napped. I had just drifted off when I heard her voice through the thin basement ceiling, apparently on a phone call in the living room directly above my bedroom. Her tone was completely different from the sweet, victim voice she used around our parents, and the words I heard made my blood freeze in my veins. "The whole nanny thing is working perfectly," she said with a laugh that sounded nothing like her usual performance. "Melody looks absolutely horrible, and everyone's starting to think she might be unstable. A few more weeks and I'll have enough evidence to get a restraining order." The conversation continued for nearly 30 minutes, and I managed to record most of it using my phone while trying to process the devastating implications of what I was hearing. Hannah wasn't just using me for free childcare, she was systematically destroying my reputation and mental health as part of a calculated plan to portray me as an unfit and dangerous person. She described documenting every instance of my exhaustion-induced mistakes, every moment when I had raised my voice in frustration, every time I had appeared disheveled or unprofessional around the babies. According to her plan, this evidence would support a narrative of gradual mental breakdown that would justify removing me from the house and potentially from the family entirely. The ultimate goal was to gain sympathy and financial support from extended family while eliminating me as competition for our parents' attention and resources. The insurance scam component was even more sinister than I had imagined. Hannah had apparently purchased additional coverage for the babies that would pay out significant amounts in case of injury or trauma caused by inadequate childcare. She was deliberately creating dangerous situations by leaving harmful objects within the baby's reach, then positioning me as the responsible caregiver when accidents occurred. Every scraped knee, every minor fall, every moment of infant crying was being documented as evidence of my negligence and incompetence. The plan was to build a case strong enough to claim that my mental instability had created an unsafe environment for the children, triggering insurance payouts while positioning Hannah as the protective mother who had tried everything to help her troubled sister. The fourth betrayal hit me like a physical blow when I discovered our father's active participation in researching legal strategies to permanently remove me from their lives. Hidden browser history on the family computer revealed extensive searches about involuntary commitment procedures, adult guardianship laws, and methods for legally evicting family members. Dad had been consulting with lawyers about the most effective ways to have me declared mentally incompetent, which would allow them to control my finances while eliminating any legal claims I might have regarding the unpaid labor or housing arrangements. The level of premeditation was staggering, involving months of careful planning and legal research to ensure that Hannah's manipulation campaign would have lasting legal consequences. Mom's text message history with Hannah revealed the depth of maternal collaboration in this psychological torture campaign. The messages showed detailed coaching sessions where Mom advised Hannah on specific victim narratives that would be most effective with different family members, suggestions for creating documentation that would support claims of my mental instability, and strategies for isolating me from potential allies. One particularly devastating exchange involved Mom praising Hannah for being smart enough to use my own career ambitions against me, pointing out that my dedication to work could be portrayed as obsessive behavior and evidence of mental instability. The texts revealed that Mom had never viewed me as a daughter deserving protection, but rather as an obstacle to Hannah's success that needed to be neutralized. The involvement of Hannah's boyfriend Jake added another layer of violation to an already horrifying situation. Jake had been secretly recording video footage of me during my most vulnerable moments, using hidden cameras to capture footage of exhaustion-induced emotional breakdowns, moments when I struggled to comfort crying babies, and instances when the stress had driven me to tears or frustrated outbursts. These recordings were intended to serve as evidence of my mental instability and unfitness around children, but they also represented a massive invasion of privacy that had been ongoing for months. The footage was being edited to remove context and make normal stress responses appear like dangerous behavioral episodes that threatened the baby's safety. The legal consultation evidence was perhaps the most chilling discovery of all. Hannah had been working with a family law attorney to develop a comprehensive strategy that would involve multiple legal actions designed to destroy my life systematically. The plan included filing for a restraining order based on fabricated evidence of threatening behavior, pursuing civil lawsuits for alleged damage to her property and emotional distress, and potentially having me involuntarily committed for psychiatric evaluation based on the documented evidence of erratic behavior. The attorney had advised that once these legal actions were in motion, I would be unable to challenge them effectively due to lack of financial resources and the overwhelming amount of fabricated evidence supporting Hannah's claims. The realization that I was living in a carefully constructed trap designed to destroy my life completely transformed my approach to this nightmare situation. Instead of continuing to react defensively to Hannah's psychological attacks, I decided to document everything while pretending to remain the exhausted, defeated victim she expected me to be. This strategy required incredible self-control because I had to continue enduring the abuse while secretly building a case that would expose the truth about what was really happening in our household. Every manipulation, every lie, every moment of deliberate cruelty would be captured and preserved as evidence of the elaborate conspiracy that my own family had constructed to eliminate me from their lives. The secret documentation process began with recording Hannah's actual interactions with the babies when she thought no one was watching. Using my phone and small recording devices strategically placed around the house, I captured hours of footage showing Hannah's complete neglect of her own children. The recordings revealed that she frequently left the babies crying for extended periods while she watched television or chatted on the phone, only picking them up when she heard someone approaching. More disturbingly, I documented instances where she deliberately provoked the babies to cry by making loud noises or sudden movements, then immediately left the room so that I would be forced to deal with the upset children. The contrast between her loving mother performance and her actual indifferent behavior toward her own children was shocking even to me. The financial investigation uncovered layers of fraud and manipulation that extended far beyond what I had imagined. Our parents had been claiming me as a dependent on their tax returns despite my paying rent and handling my own expenses, allowing them to receive significant tax benefits while portraying me as financially incapable of independence. Hannah had somehow gained access to my credit information and had been making small purchases in my name, building up a pattern of financial activity that could later be used to claim I was financially irresponsible or potentially stealing from the family. Bank records showed that the money our parents claimed was helping with baby expenses was actually being funneled into a separate account that only Hannah could access, creating a financial cushion for her while I struggled with mounting debt. Hannah's social media presence told a completely different story than the reality I was living every day. Her Instagram and Facebook accounts were filled with carefully staged photos showing her as a glowing, devoted mother who was single-handedly caring for her beautiful twins. The posts described sleepless nights spent lovingly tending to her babies, the joy of motherhood despite its challenges, and gratitude for the small amount of help she occasionally received from family members. Comments from friends and extended family praised her strength and dedication, with no mention of the full-time nanny who was actually providing all the childcare while Hannah slept and relaxed. The narrative she had constructed online would make any claims about my role in raising the children appear to be lies or exaggerations. The discovery of identity theft added a criminal element to Hannah's manipulation campaign that could potentially result in serious legal consequences for her. Bank statements and credit reports revealed that she had opened several accounts using my personal information, including a credit card that had been used for purchases of baby equipment and personal items. The accounts were set up to receive statements at a post office box that Hannah had rented, ensuring that I wouldn't discover the fraud until significant damage had been done to my credit rating. This financial manipulation was clearly intended to prevent me from qualifying for apartments or loans that would allow me to escape the family situation, while also creating evidence that could be used to portray me as financially irresponsible. The unexpected ally emerged in the form of Mrs. Patterson, our elderly next-door neighbor who had been quietly observing the situation with growing concern. Mrs. Patterson approached me during one of my rare moments outside the house, expressing worry about my obvious exhaustion and offering help that I desperately needed. She revealed that she had been hearing babies crying for hours at a time, often during periods when Hannah's car was not in the driveway, contradicting the story that Hannah was the primary caregiver. More importantly, Mrs. Patterson had witnessed several instances where Hannah had deliberately made noise near the baby's windows to wake them up, then immediately left the house while they cried. Her willingness to serve as a witness provided crucial corroboration for my claims about Hannah's actual behavior. The legal case-building process required meticulous organization of evidence that would demonstrate clear patterns of labor law violations, financial exploitation, and psychological abuse. I documented every hour of unpaid work, every instance of financial manipulation, every recorded conversation that revealed the true nature of the arrangement. The evidence included time-stamped recordings, bank statements, text message screenshots, social media posts, and witness statements that together painted a comprehensive picture of systematic family abuse designed to destroy my life. The sheer volume of evidence was overwhelming, but it represented months of careful documentation that would be nearly impossible for Hannah and our parents to discredit or explain away. The family dinner revelation was planned with the precision of a military operation, timed to occur when the maximum number of witnesses would be present and Hannah would be least prepared to control the narrative. I had invited our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins for what I described as a celebration of the baby's growth and development, knowing that Hannah's ego would prevent her from objecting to a gathering designed to showcase her motherhood. The dining room was filled with family members who had been receiving Hannah's carefully crafted version of events for months, all of them believing that I was the grateful volunteer nanny who had been struggling with the challenges of childcare but was learning valuable lessons about family responsibility. The evidence presentation began subtly, with me expressing gratitude for the opportunity to help with the babies while casually mentioning some of the scheduling challenges I had been facing. As Hannah nodded along with her practiced sympathetic expression, I pulled out my phone and began playing recordings of her actual voice describing the manipulation campaign. The first recording captured her laughing about how perfectly the nanny arrangement was working to make me look absolutely horrible and unstable, followed by detailed discussions of documenting my mistakes for future legal action. The silence in the dining room was deafening as family members processed the disconnect between the loving sister act they had witnessed and the calculating manipulator they were hearing on the recordings. The financial confrontation escalated as I presented bank statements, tax documents, and credit reports that revealed the scope of the financial fraud that had been perpetrated against me. The evidence showed thousands of dollars in unpaid labor, fraudulent use of my credit information, and tax benefits our parents had received by falsely claiming me as a dependent while I paid rent and covered my own expenses. Hannah's theft of my identity for financial gain was documented with credit card statements and account opening documents that bore forged signatures, creating a clear case for criminal fraud charges. The mathematical calculation of stolen labor and fraudulent financial activity totaled over $30,000, representing months of systematic exploitation that had nearly destroyed my financial stability. Hannah's panic response revealed the extent to which she had relied on maintaining control over the narrative to protect herself from consequences. As the evidence mounted and family members began asking pointed questions about the discrepancies between her stories and the documented reality, Hannah's carefully maintained facade began cracking under pressure. She attempted to claim that the recordings were fake or taken out of context, but the sheer volume of evidence made such explanations increasingly implausible. Her desperation led to increasingly frantic attempts to destroy evidence, including trying to grab my phone and delete recordings while screaming that I was sick and obsessed with destroying her happiness. Our parents' shock and denial represented the collapse of their carefully constructed belief system where Hannah was the perfect daughter and I was the problematic child who needed constant correction. Faced with undeniable evidence of their golden child's systematic cruelty and criminal behavior, Mom and Dad initially refused to accept the truth, insisting that there must be some misunderstanding or that I had somehow manipulated the evidence to make Hannah appear guilty. Their psychological investment in Hannah's perfection was so complete that acknowledging her true nature would require admitting their own failures as parents and their complicity in months of psychological abuse against me. The public exposure threat represented a nuclear option that would destroy Hannah's carefully constructed reputation beyond repair. I announced my intention to share the evidence with Hannah's employer, her friends, her boyfriend's family, and the broader community through social media and local news outlets. The prospect of public humiliation and social consequences finally penetrated Hannah's narcissistic bubble, as she realized that her ability to manipulate people depended entirely on controlling the information they received about her behavior. The threat of exposure to her professional network was particularly effective because Hannah's job in public relations required maintaining an impeccable reputation and trustworthy image. Hannah's desperate retaliation through false police reports backfired spectacularly when the responding officers discovered the evidence I had compiled and realized they were dealing with a malicious false reporting situation. Her claim that I had stolen money and property from the babies was immediately contradicted by bank records showing that I had been purchasing baby supplies with my own money while Hannah received cash allowances from our parents. The officers' investigation revealed that Hannah had a pattern of making false emergency calls designed to create documentation of my alleged instability, but the recorded evidence of her admitting to this strategy made it clear that she was the one engaging in criminal behavior. The false police reports added criminal charges to the growing list of legal consequences Hannah was facing. The police investigation that was supposed to destroy my credibility instead became the catalyst for exposing the full scope of Hannah's criminal behavior and our parents' complicity in systematic family abuse. The responding officers were initially prepared to treat the situation as a routine family dispute, but the extensive documentation I provided revealed patterns of fraud, identity theft, labor exploitation, and false reporting that constituted serious criminal offenses. Detective Martinez, who took over the case, later told me that she had never encountered such well-documented evidence of psychological manipulation and financial fraud within a family setting, and that my meticulous record-keeping had made prosecution of Hannah's crimes virtually guaranteed. Hannah's lies unraveled with breathtaking speed once they were subjected to professional investigation and cross-reference with documented evidence. Every story she had told to justify her behavior contained contradictions that became apparent when compared to recorded conversations, bank statements, and witness testimony. Her claim that I had volunteered eagerly for the nanny arrangement was contradicted by recordings of our parents threatening to raise my rent unless I agreed to provide free labor. Her portrayal of herself as a devoted single mother was destroyed by hours of footage showing her neglecting the babies while I provided all their care. The narrative of my mental instability collapsed when investigators realized that my documented stress responses were normal reactions to months of systematic abuse and exploitation. The extended family confrontation forced our parents to face the devastating truth about their golden child's character and their own role in enabling years of manipulative behavior. Grandma Richardson, who had always been the family matriarch and moral authority, demanded a full accounting of how Mom and Dad could have participated in such systematic cruelty against their own daughter. The revelation that our parents had actively coached Hannah in manipulation strategies and helped research legal methods to have me declared incompetent shocked family members who had viewed them as loving, if misguided, parents. Uncle Robert, who worked in banking, was particularly horrified by the evidence of financial fraud and immediately offered to help me pursue full legal remedies against all parties involved. The financial consequences extended far beyond simple restitution as the Internal Revenue Service launched an investigation into our parents' fraudulent tax claims and Hannah's unreported income from the various fraud schemes. The tax benefits our parents had received by falsely claiming me as a dependent while I paid rent and covered my own expenses constituted tax fraud that could result in significant penalties and potential criminal charges. Hannah's identity theft and credit fraud triggered investigations by multiple financial institutions and credit agencies, creating a complex web of legal consequences that would impact her financial credibility for years to come. The total amount of restitution and penalties was estimated at over $70,000, representing a devastating financial blow to our parents' retirement plans and Hannah's future economic stability. Hannah's complete psychological breakdown occurred when she finally realized that her manipulation tactics were not only failing but actively working against her as more people recognized her true character. The narcissistic rage that had been hidden beneath her victim facade erupted in public displays of anger and threats that only served to confirm everyone's worst suspicions about her mental state. She began making increasingly desperate accusations against family members who dared to question her behavior, claiming that everyone was jealous of her success as a mother and conspiring against her happiness. The contrast between her previous sweet manipulator persona and her current unhinged behavior was so stark that even her most devoted supporters began to distance themselves from the chaos she created everywhere she went. Mrs. Patterson's introduction to a tenant rights attorney opened up legal avenues I hadn't known existed for addressing labor exploitation and housing fraud within family relationships. Attorney Sarachin specialized in cases involving financial abuse by family members and immediately recognized the sophisticated nature of the exploitation I had endured. She explained that the combination of unpaid labor, housing manipulation, identity theft, and psychological abuse created multiple grounds for civil litigation that could result in substantial damages beyond simple restitution. More importantly, she offered to pursue the case on contingency, meaning I wouldn't need upfront legal fees to seek justice against my family's systematic abuse. The restraining order I filed against Hannah provided legal protection against her escalating threats and harassment while establishing official court recognition of the abuse I had suffered. The evidence package supporting the restraining order was so comprehensive that the judge granted the maximum protection available, including provisions preventing Hannah from contacting me directly or indirectly, coming within 500 feet of my residence or workplace, or making any public statements about me on social media or other platforms. The legal protection felt like the first breath of fresh air I had taken in months, knowing that Hannah's ability to manipulate and terrorize me was now constrained by court order and potential jail time for violations. The legal victory that followed months of court proceedings validated every ounce of suffering I had endured while providing comprehensive justice that addressed all aspects of the systematic abuse I had survived. Judge Thompson, who presided over the civil case, described the evidence as one of the most disturbing examples of family manipulation and exploitation she had encountered in 20 years on the bench. The court awarded damages that included restitution for unpaid labor calculated at professional childcare rates, compensation for lost business income due to deliberate sabotage, punitive damages for identity theft and fraud, and additional compensation for emotional distress and psychological trauma. The total judgment exceeded $150,000, representing not just financial compensation but official recognition that the treatment I had received was legally and morally unacceptable. Hannah's criminal consequences extended beyond the civil judgment as prosecutors pursued felony charges for identity theft, fraud, and making false police reports. The plea bargain she eventually accepted included 18 months of probation, community service requirements, mandatory psychological counseling, and restitution payments that would continue for years. More significantly, the criminal record would permanently impact her employment prospects in public relations and any other field requiring trustworthiness and financial responsibility. Her dreams of building a successful career while living off family support and manipulation had been permanently derailed by the legal consequences of her own criminal behavior. Our parents faced their own devastating reckoning as they lost the respect and support of extended family members who could no longer overlook their role in enabling and orchestrating the systematic abuse of their own daughter. Grandma Richardson, who had always been their staunchest supporter, publicly announced that she was removing them from her will and redistributing their inheritance to family members who had demonstrated genuine character and integrity. The social isolation was perhaps more devastating than the financial penalties, as decades of family relationships crumbled under the weight of their revealed moral bankruptcy. Holiday gatherings and family celebrations would forever be marked by their absence and the reminder of how they had betrayed fundamental parental responsibilities. My career restoration exceeded even my most optimistic expectations, as clients who had witnessed my dedication and professionalism during impossible circumstances offered new opportunities that recognized my resilience and integrity. The story of my survival and victory over family manipulation had spread through professional networks, creating a powerful narrative about overcoming adversity that resonated with business owners who valued employees with proven strength under pressure. 3 major clients offered long-term contracts that would provide financial stability while allowing me to rebuild my professional reputation, and several colleagues reached out with collaborative opportunities that had never been available before my public vindication. The new living situation represented everything I had dreamed of during the months of basement imprisonment and systematic abuse. Mrs. Patterson had introduced me to her niece, who owned a beautiful apartment complex and offered me a 2-bedroom unit at below-market rent in recognition of what I had survived. The space was bright, quiet, and completely under my control, with no manipulative family members monitoring my every movement or sabotaging my attempts to build a successful life. For the first time in years, I could work uninterrupted, sleep through the night, and make decisions about my time and energy without considering how they would affect someone else's manipulation strategies. Hannah's final desperate attempt to use the babies as emotional manipulation tools demonstrated that even criminal conviction and legal consequences hadn't taught her the fundamental lesson that other people were not objects to be controlled for her benefit. She attempted to claim that separating me from the children I had raised would cause them psychological trauma, conveniently ignoring the fact that she had deliberately kept me from forming genuine bonds with them as part of her original exploitation plan. The court-ordered psychological evaluation revealed that Hannah viewed her own children primarily as tools for garnering sympathy and support rather than as individual human beings deserving love and protection. The custody evaluation that followed painted a disturbing picture of a mother who was emotionally incapable of putting her children's needs ahead of her own manipulative objectives. The complete severance from manipulative family members was initially more difficult than I had anticipated, despite the relief it provided from constant psychological abuse. Years of conditioning had taught me to feel guilty for prioritizing my own well-being over family expectations, and breaking free from those ingrained patterns required conscious effort and professional support. However, the peace and stability that resulted from removing toxic influences from my life confirmed that the decision was not only correct but essential for my long-term mental health and success. The silence where there had once been constant criticism and manipulation gradually filled with genuine friendships and professional relationships based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. The establishment of my new life in an environment free from manipulation and exploitation felt like awakening from a nightmare that had consumed years of my existence. My beautiful apartment became a sanctuary where I could finally experience what normal adult life was supposed to feel like, without constant interruptions, manufactured crises, or psychological attacks designed to undermine my confidence and independence. The freelance graphic design business that had nearly been destroyed by Hannah's sabotage flourished in ways I had never imagined possible when my time and energy weren't being systematically drained by unpaid labor and family drama. Within 6 months of escaping the toxic family situation, my income had tripled as clients recognized my creativity and reliability when I was allowed to work without interference. The therapy and recovery process revealed the extent to which years of family manipulation had distorted my understanding of normal relationships and healthy boundaries. Working with Dr. Amanda Foster, a specialist in family trauma and psychological abuse, I learned to recognize the sophisticated manipulation techniques that had been used against me and develop strategies for protecting myself from similar exploitation in the future. The healing journey involved grieving the family relationships I had always hoped to have while accepting the reality that some people, including biological relatives, are simply incapable of genuine love or respect. This process was painful but ultimately liberating, as it freed me from the exhausting cycle of hoping for change from people who had repeatedly demonstrated their unwillingness to treat me with basic human dignity. The healthy relationships that developed in the aftermath of my escape were characterized by qualities I had never experienced within my family: mutual respect, genuine support during difficulties, celebration of successes without jealousy, and honest communication without hidden agendas or manipulation. My friendship with Jennifer, a fellow graphic designer who had heard my story through professional networks, demonstrated what genuine sisterly affection looked like when it wasn't contaminated by competition and resentment. The romantic relationship that eventually developed with Michael, Mrs. Patterson's nephew who worked as a social worker specializing in family abuse cases, was built on a foundation of shared values and mutual admiration rather than exploitation and control. Hannah's downfall reached its completion when the custody battle revealed the full extent of her inability to function as a responsible parent without someone else providing all the actual childcare. The court-appointed guardian ad litem documented that Hannah had no understanding of her children's basic needs, schedules, or developmental milestones despite having given birth to them 8 months earlier. Her primary concern during custody evaluations was how the children could be used to gain sympathy and financial support rather than ensuring their safety and well-being. The final custody ruling granted primary custody to the baby's father, with Hannah receiving only supervised visitation due to concerns about her emotional instability and history of using the children as manipulation tools. Our parents' isolation from extended family and social networks represented the natural consequences of their choices to enable and participate in systematic abuse against their own daughter. The revelation of their behavior had spread throughout their church, neighborhood, and professional associations, creating a permanent stain on their reputation that would follow them for the remainder of their lives. Grandma Richardson's decision to redistribute their inheritance sent a powerful message throughout the family about the consequences of betraying fundamental moral principles, and other relatives followed her lead by limiting contact and excluding them from family gatherings and celebrations. The personal growth and self-discovery that emerged from surviving such systematic abuse included developing unshakable confidence in my ability to recognize and resist manipulation from anyone, regardless of their relationship to me. The experience had taught me that family loyalty should never require accepting abuse, that love without respect is meaningless, and that sometimes the strongest act of self-preservation is walking away from toxic people who refuse to change their behavior. These lessons extended beyond family relationships to every aspect of my life, helping me build a career based on genuine merit rather than artificial support, friendships based on mutual benefit rather than one-sided exploitation, and romantic relationships based on partnership rather than control. The opportunity to help another woman escape a similar family manipulation situation arose when a client mentioned her sister's struggle with exploitative relatives who demanded free childcare in exchange for housing. Recognizing the familiar patterns of manipulation and financial exploitation, I was able to share resources, legal contacts, and practical strategies that helped her develop an escape plan before the situation escalated to the level of abuse I had experienced. The ability to transform my painful experience into help for others provided a sense of purpose and closure that no amount of legal victory or financial compensation could have achieved. The life lessons that emerged from this nightmare centered on understanding the difference between genuine family relationships and toxic bonds disguised as love. Real family members want to see you succeed and thrive independently, while manipulative relatives view your success as a threat to their control and will work systematically to undermine your happiness and stability. The experience taught me that blood relationships do not automatically deserve loyalty or sacrifice, and that choosing to protect yourself from abuse is not selfish but necessary for building a life worth living. These insights have guided every major decision since my escape and continue to provide clarity when facing new challenges or relationships. The hopeful future outlook that replaced years of despair and confusion included plans for expanding my business, eventually pursuing romantic relationships that might lead to marriage and children of my own, and continuing to build friendships with people who share my values of honesty, integrity, and mutual support. The financial stability that resulted from legal victory and career success provided options I had never imagined possible, including the ability to travel, pursue additional education, and make choices based on personal fulfillment rather than survival necessity. Most importantly, the confidence that came from surviving and overcoming systematic family abuse created unshakable faith in my ability to handle whatever challenges the future might bring. Have you ever experienced family members who tried to exploit your kindness and manipulate you into providing free labor or support? What would you have done if you discovered your own family was conspiring against you the way Hannah and my parents conspired against me? Share your thoughts in the comments below because I'd love to hear about how you've handled family manipulation or boundary violations in your own life. If this story resonated with you or if you know someone who might be dealing with similar family exploitation, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming family drama and finding the strength to choose yourself over toxic relationships. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with manipulative family members and that it's possible to escape even the most sophisticated psychological traps. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who refuse to treat you with the respect and dignity every human being deserves, even if those people happen to share your DNA.